Hello all, thank you for joining me at Park University's virtual academic conference. My name is Dr. Deanna Koepke, and today I'm going to be talking to you about co-creating content to demonstrate understanding. So we're all aware that there are some things that all institutions of higher learning are looking for. They all want to be able to show academic rigor to accreditors and administrators. They all want better retention of students that come from the development of positive relationships. And they all want instructors to have meaningful engagement with their students. So what's a way that we can make all of these things happen? Well, it's through the use of content co-creation. Traditionally, content co-creation is when the instructors and the students work together to choose the assignments in a course, possibly to choose how the assignments will be implemented, or to choose due dates, sometimes to choose grading weights. No matter how it's used, it requires students to take some responsibility for their learning rather than just being passive recipients of the information that the instructor provides. And when content co-creation is used, the students have been shown through research to feel an increased sense of engagement and that they enjoy this method of learning more so than other forms of learning. And having just completed the Gardner Institute's course on the humanity of inclusive practice, this is a case where students see that their contributions are valued, and this is a key inclusive practice. So some of the benefits of content co-creation is that the students feel empowered. They are taking responsibility for their own learning. Another inclusive practice is that we have a cycle of positive relationships. Positive relationships are foundational in order for this work to take place, but they're also enhanced by the practice of content co-creation. Students learn new ways of working, one of which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And it creates a trusting environment that allows students to take more risks, another inclusive practice. And finally, for my last inclusive practice, a sense of community is enhanced because the students are sharing responsibility and accountability for their learning. So I'd like to tell you about my scaffolded method. Traditional content co-creation may not be realistic in all courses. You may not want to share decisions about what assignments will be, when they will be due. You might be in the College of Management where you have some pretty strict guidelines about what the assignments are going to look like based on accreditation requirements. So let me just share with you my scaffolded method of content co-creation as it applies to weekly discussions. This can be done in the live classroom or it can be done online. So my points, either for the weekly discussions or attendance in live classes, are broken into thirds. So they get 1/3 of their points if they just show up. They get 1/3 of the points if they participate in whatever the discussion item or prompt is for that week, for that day. And then they get 1/3 of their points by bringing in an external source. Now, week one, it's very, very low stakes. I just asked them to relate whatever we're talking about that day or that week in terms of just something that they've experienced, something they've heard of, something that maybe a friend has gone through. It's just that initial low stakes connection. Week two is still a low stakes assignment, but I'm asking them to connect what we're talking about with another class. So the first time I used this, it was in a course called Sociocultural Awareness. And I asked them to relate topics of racism to something that they had learned possibly in history class, or maybe a philosophy class with, the greater good, things like that. In week three, I go to a little bit higher stakes point in that I ask them to find an actual source, but I allow it to be something that's very open. It can be an internet source, something from social media, something in pop culture. A lot of times song lyrics are really useful in the sociology, psychology courses that I teach, but they have to find an actual source. And then in week 4 and beyond, we hit the pinnacle of the higher expectations in that if they want their full points, they need to find a peer-reviewed journal article that talks about whatever the discussion prompt is for that day or that week. So doing so allows the students to develop agency, capacity, and confidence. The increased motivation that the students find in my course sometimes leads to better academic achievement. One student came to me last semester at the end and said she had gotten the best grades she had ever gotten in her educational career, not just in my course, but in the entire semester. This can reduce test anxiety and imposter syndrome. The students feel confident because they know that they belong in the academic world, that they're successfully navigating academic sources. It also leads to an increased range of skills. This is something that I was recently able to use in a graduate school recommendation for one of my students. And I can't claim all the credit, but he did. He was accepted at 3 of the 5 schools that he applied to. And I'd like to think at least a part of it has to do with my letter of recommendation talking about his ability to find relevant current research and apply it to course content. These skills transfer to other courses. I know this because students who've taken classes with me where we use this method and then go to other classes with me, even if I don't ask them to do the same thing, they are still doing it, even without me requiring it. And finally, using this method allows students to engage in metacognition. So they're thinking about course content multiple times each week, rather than what I call the just-in-time method of preparation, where they are studying the night before a test and really trying to cram in the information. Having them think about it multiple times each week when they're preparing, when they're presenting their information in class, allows them to really sink in to the material. So I also wanted to share 7 principles of learning from the Ambrose, Bridges, DiPietro, Lovett, and Norman work. First of all, prior knowledge is activated. And this ties in with the second point, knowledge is organized in terms of what the students already know. Because when I first start, those first couple of weeks, I'm asking the students to think about what do they already know that relates to this course content, and giving them that hook to hang their information on allows them to create even more connection in terms of what they already know and making meaning of what they're learning now. Third point, motivation is engaged. The students, possibly not voluntarily, but because I am saying if they want that third of their points, they're going to need to go out and find some material. So that engages their motivation. This allows them to acquire and practice skills for mastery. So every time they're going out and doing this research, they are reinforcing those skills, which will serve them well in future coursework. And this is when I also like to point out the title of this was the co-creation of content allows them to demonstrate mastery that I can see. Because when the students can provide relevant information regarding a course concept, then I know that they're understanding the content that I'm trying to convey to them. Point 5 in the 7 principles of learning, this is goal-directed practice. They have a clear set goal, but they also get feedback both from the instructor and from their classmates as they are engaging in discussions about the materials that they bring. The students develop intellectually because they are engaging with relevant research. Again, this is self-explanatory at this point. And then lastly, the students are self-directed because they're the ones going out and finding the material that they're going to bring back. So, how could you use content co-creation in your classes? How could it help you and your students to have a more robust discussion? I really encourage you to spend some time thinking about it. I think you will be pleased with your results. And there's my references for this presentation. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention today.